Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Insights. I'm Bethany Ricciardi. Now 2016 is a big election year on all levels, local, state, and national. But today we're here to focus on the township of Alpena and things that are going on with this primary election. And joined with me today is Betty Westrop. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So how long have you been a township resident?
I've been a township resident for 32 years.
Okay.
So I've spent a good amount of time and in the same house. So I know the neighborhood and I know the township fairly well.
How have you been able to see things change? And with this upcoming primary election, what are some things that you would like to see changed?
I actually haven't seen things change as much as I believe they should have. I mean, life has moved on in the last 32 years. So many things have changed, and Alpena, particularly in the township, seems to be standing still in a lot of ways. Certainly there's a lot of development out M32, and that's all good news, but a lot of the things that could have developed, that could have made Alpena Township a really growing, progressive place have not happened.
How about the management? I know the supervisor position is up for election. Do you think seeing some changes in leadership would bring about other changes?
Well, I certainly hope so. The supervisor's been in that spot for 24 years. And through most of the time that I've been a township resident, the relationship, the intergovernmental relationship between the city and the township, and even the county and the township, those relationships have not been good. The fact that we have little cooperation is well documented. And the water sewer problem between the city and the township is just another example of that. It's a really extreme example. It kind of points to the worst that could happen.
Now, I know you mentioned to me off camera, you have a friend who lives in the city and owns a business in the township, and he's always like, it's almost like he's suing himself.
Right. He's paying the city's legal fees through his taxes, and paying the township through his taxes for their legal fees, and so yeah, he's effectively suing himself, but through no fault of his own. What a crazy position to be in.
So what are you hoping to see change? When you head to the ballot, what are you going in there? What's your mindset?
I'm thinking that it would be a good idea to elect people who are willing to cooperate, who are less interested in maintaining the turf and more interested in making this a community. Someone said to me, supposing 29,000 people, and that's the population of Alpena Township, all landed here at one time, would we set up our government this way? I mean, it's crazy to have a little city and then around it a little township of 9,000 people. And in those 9,000 people are governed by a supervisor, a clerk, a treasurer, a separate DPW, and a fire department. Now, do we need to abolish township government? I'm not so sure about that, but I certainly think we need to work together as a community to provide services and to support a government that functions effectively.
And now going off of how big the township is, there's not a lot of money there.
No, there's not a lot of money. Each mill in the township generates $370,000 in local taxes. Well, $370,000 to support, again, a full administration and a DPW and building assessors and all of that. It's no wonder that every time someone goes to the township for a request, the township says there's no money. Well, there is no money. But running the township on one mill is not a good idea. It's also, though, a sound re-election strategy. I will never raise millage, you can vote for me. Well, maybe you won't raise millage, but you also won't expand the tax base of the township to make this a viable place to live.
So do you find that there are candidates available during this primary election to vote in that may have the same mindset and look at the issues the way that you do?
I think there are people who, yes, who want to move forward, who want to work with the city and the county. And, you know, I'm not blaming entirely the township for not working with the city. I think there have been times when the city has certainly not worked very well with the township. But I think it's time to start. And this water sewer issue is certainly a place to begin.
Now, I know a lot of our audience, they might know what we're referring to, but do you want to give a little bit of a background as to, you know, the whole city suing the township
Sure.
and them countersuing?
Sure. The city and the township had a water sewer agreement that expired. It was a 35-year agreement and expired in July 2012. Well, the city owns the water treatment plant. The city owns the sewage treatment plant. So it's not as though Alpena Township can go to another source for water or sewer collection. But we're kind of over a barrel in Alpena Township. So it would have been in our very best interest to negotiate a successive agreement that would have you know, been fair to both the township and the city. Well, the city did a study of its lines, mains, all of that, and asked the township to participate in the study. The township, of course, had no money and refused to co-sponsor it. So the study says, look, the township hasn't been paying its fair share of the water burden or the sewer burden for years. And so the rates went up. They went up dramatically. Well, the township, instead of paying the new bills, stayed with the old expired rate and said, we're just not paying you. Well, that led the city then to tack interest on to the rates, and it also led it to sue the township. So now, as township residents, we're paying for, we'll probably end up paying for higher rates, plus we're paying provisional water rates so the township can amass a big war chest to fight the city, so we'll pay for legal fees, and in addition, we'll pay interest on the money that we should have been paying to the city all this time. So I think the township residents are on the hook for a lot of money, and it could have been negotiated in a different way, a better way.
So it sounds like you're eager for change. Are you all set to vote?
Oh, I absolutely am.
So, I mean, looking forward, are there any bigger concerns over others? I know we touched on the water and sewer. Would you say that's your biggest concern?
That's my biggest concern because it touches everyone. However, the payment in lieu of, I know that's made a lot of headlines and gotten some electronic coverage too. The payment in lieu of is a strategy to save an organization money. They pay a small stipend to people for not taking a full insurance coverage. And township resident, or not township officials, but township employees get $300 a month, which is $3,600 a year, which is a fine sort of stipend. But township officials, particularly the supervisor and the treasurer, get as much as $23,000 a year, which certainly doesn't save the township any money. That's the cost of a full insurance premium.
Right.
That's not what payment in lieu of means.
And I know there's a lot of things we can go into, but we are going to take a quick commercial break. So I appreciate you being here once again, Betty.
Okay, thanks, Bethany.
Absolutely. And don't go anywhere, because when we return, we're going to hear from more township residents on things they would like to see change during this election. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're here talking about the August 2nd primary that's coming up very soon, and we're focusing on the township. So I'm here right now with Gordon Luzak. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So how long have you been an Alpena Township resident?
I have been an Alpena Township resident for 5 years now.
5 years. So
Yes.
kind of pretty recent, kind of when all of this started underway, that's for sure, at least.
Yes, it's been a waterfall of emotions since buying my house in Alpena Township and what I've experienced in the past 5 years, yes.
So going into the polling stations in a couple of days, what are you looking for change? What are some of your biggest concerns?
My biggest concerns run with the township, its transparency, how it's been running with the water rates, and that, especially being a homeowner in Alpena Township. Buying the house feeling that I would be secure and everything else, but when you start getting water bills that equal what your house payment is, it runs into major problems when it shouldn't, when I've got friends that live inside the city that are paying half of what I pay.
And you've done pretty well in educating yourself in this issue, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about some of your discoveries?
I have discovered a lot just being a resident and not being working with the township. It's really sad when you have to take so much time to go through just to feel that you should educate yourself on what your township employees or elected officials are doing, because you can't feel safe that they're looking out for the best interests of the residents.
And I guess that could also go into the transparency and the communication that you're hoping to receive better.
It's better when you can email or try and talk with an official, and automatically when you ask a question you get hit with aggressiveness, or that you aren't being treated like a proper, they're working for us and they don't seem to be as wanting to listen to the other side.
So I know with politicians it can always be iffy, but have you been able to really read anyone and see their transparency and maybe someone that you would want to elect and hope to see them bring change and move us forward?
I actually have to say that for this primary, I am what I would more consider a registered Republican, but for this primary, yes, I have seen an official that I do believe is more than qualified to be in the position, and I'm actually going to vote in this primary as a Democrat just to make sure that he has the chance to help our township out.
Do they stand on the same grounds that you do for the water and sewer? Where do you stand with that specifically?
I stand that we need a change. The provisional rates that we're being charged is absolutely ludicrous. I don't believe it's fair. It's beyond what it costs to actually get us our water, which is what is legally done. And unfortunately, this provisional fees that they've collected, I don't think we're ever going to see back, and I think we're going to need a change if we're going to have any kind of hope of creating a balance between the city and the township to get this issue resolved. Otherwise, it's been butting heads for years, and we need someone in there that'll actually sit down in a polite business manner that actually knows how to hash out an agreement and get it worked out. It is in the best interest for the city, best interest for the township, and get it worked out nicely.
Going back nicely is a good way to put it. Sitting in the Alpena Township meetings, what is that atmosphere like? I know personally as press I've been there, but what is it like as a resident? Nicely, I don't know if I would describe it as that.
I would consider it a hostile environment. Anybody that tries to bring up anything gets either told. I've even tried to bring up water issues with the township. As far as my concerns, was told to sit down, and everybody is just kind of there to listen, and if you do bring up a challenge, you're rebutted and basically told to sit back down, and it's their way or the highway.
Are there any other concerns that you're kind of going into this election looking for hope of change?
I've lived in northern Michigan since '84, so even though I recently moved here, I still know what Alpena's been. I know where it was at. I see what its potential is to become as far as a city. I've seen other cities throughout northern Michigan grow and prosper in the ways that they should, and I see that we have that ability, but when we're dealing with water issues that could keep businesses out of here because they look at the rates that the township's charging and they aren't going to want to pay those. So it keeps businesses out, it keeps residents out. We have the ability to actually make this a very nice hub and center for northern Michigan on our side of the state, to where people come to instead of the other side of the state, and this is really hampering us from actually being able to grow and expand as a nice community.
Absolutely, like almost like one region instead of divided into the three. Yeah.
Exactly. It gives a chance for everybody to come here. We're trying to get more people to come to Alpena, and this is really hampering what we could accomplish as an actual township, city, and area.
So are you all set to vote? Are you ready to go August 2nd?
I am very ready to go.
Almost eager.
I wish it was today, because I would be down there first thing as soon as they open to make sure I put my ballot in for the right person.
And of course, going into it, you're thinking of your family, your business. You own a business here in Alpena, right?
I don't own a business. I actually work for a business
okay,
here in Alpena. I work for Dean Arbor Ford, and even them, their water rates, because they're in the city, it's pretty sad that with our business, we wash cars, we use a lot of water. Their water bills in the city are equal to what mine is for my household in the township.
Wow.
Same amount of money. And it's sad when I know that I am more than capable to take care of my family, but you have to limit the amount of, and there's more than many families in our township that are doing this. They have to limit the amount of baths that they take, the showers they take. My kids shower twice a week, you know, and that's, they're okay, they're pretty good clean kids, but when you have to start thinking in taking those kind of things with your household, and you're talking about cleanliness and taking care of things, when you have to downsize like that just to make sure that you can afford to keep your house over your head, it's really a sad situation.
Yeah, and I know, just speaking with residents in the past, that it is definitely an issue for many people in the township right now.
It is a massive issue, and we really need to, as far as for anybody that is going to vote, make sure that the person you vote for can go in there and find a way to work this out to where it isn't going to cost either the city residents, township residents, anybody any more money. Let's get the provisional fees back to the residents where they belong, because it is our money. We paid it in, and it's basically being held in an account. Well, I'd rather put it in my own savings account than let the township hold it in theirs, because they're making the interest off it, not myself.
So going into the election, are you really focusing on just the supervisor, or are you interested in switching out some of the other positions as well?
We need a change. There needs to be a change, and the change needs to come to grow Alpena in Alpena Township. So with the fact that everybody's been in there for some long-term, some way too long, we need a change. We need fresh people in there to make our township, that want to see what this township is capable of getting to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today,
Thank you so much.
Gordon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And be sure to stay tuned, because when we come back, we'll hear from one more Alpena Township resident. Thanks so much for joining us back here, everyone. I'm also now joined with Robert Hess, an Alpena Township resident. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Bethany.
So how long have you lived in the township for?
I've been a full-time resident in the township for 6 years.
Okay, and we've heard a lot of people talk about transparency in the last couple of segments. Can you kind of go into your feelings in that, and how the township acts in that way?
Transparency means different things to different people, and I think that basically there are some issues with transparency here in our township. First of all, the Open Meetings Act, the OMA, requires that the notice of meetings be posted 18 hours before the meetings. Those are a minimum standard. The statute actually says that the public body is not obliged, or is not prohibited from enacting more standards. And what the township does is they meet the absolute minimum standards. The township appears to be concerned with what's legal. And what's legal does not always mean it's right, but they are very careful just to meet the minimum standards. There's no agendas that are posted on special meetings. It just says there's a special meeting. The township residents don't have any idea what the special meetings are about, because there's no agenda, so nobody shows up, and then the township board takes whatever action they want to do. They add things to the agenda that, when there is an agenda, that are on there at the end, when everybody's left, and then they vote on things. And the entire process is designed the way the township is running now to make sure that people don't know what's going on. In my opinion, there should be an agenda that's posted 24 to 48 hours before the meeting. It should be on the website so that the residents can go to the website and look and see what's on the agenda to see if they think they should appear or not. And the agenda shouldn't be changed. Once it's posted, nothing should be added to it unless there's an emergency. And then I think there should be a vote by the board, a 2/3 vote, agreeing that there's an emergency, that something needs to be added to the agenda, so people know what the township board is going to be working on. So when they decide whether they have to take off from work or make other arrangements, whether it's worthwhile or not. The board also is quick to go into closed session. And what they say is, okay, this is attorney-client privilege. Sometimes, although they're getting a little bit better about it now since there's been some squawking going on, at least they say what they're going to discuss while they're in closed session. Now, the Open Meetings Act has an exception for talking to your lawyer about pending litigation. So, but it doesn't require that they go into closed session. It just says that they can. So I think that there should be as much discussion out in public as possible about what the dates are that the pending litigation is concerned with, when the next court dates are, when it's going to be going to trial, all those kinds of things that are a matter of public record. The motions that are filed, when a motion is filed, it's a matter of public record. Why can't they discuss it out where the residents of Alpena Township can hear what's going on with it? They just don't do that. And the budget needs to be more transparent. For instance, we had heard rumors that the township board, the board of trustees, and they call them trustees because they're supposed to act in trust for the residents, had voted to give the township supervisor and the other two officers cash in lieu of health insurance. And as Betty Westrope was saying, usually there's a small amount that you give someone who has otherwise covered by insurance. So you're not just paying the full amount of the insurance.
Right.
So the township gets a break and the individual gets something in return for it. And the contract employees in Alpena Township get $3,600 a year, as Betty said. Well, we actually looked all through the budget. All the insurance was lumped in, the health insurance was lumped into one line item. There's no record in the budget of any payments. There's no discussion of any payments. So we had to do a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request in writing for all the payments made to the supervisor. Then you had to sit down with all the mileage and all the conferences and all the other payments and the wages to look for health insurance payments. And so then you had to write each one down, and you had to add those all up to figure out that in 2015, the last year's budget, the township supervisor was paid $23,000 in cash money on top of her wages. And there was no way to see that. It was intentionally done that way, in my opinion, to cover up the fact that they were giving all this cash money, extra cash money, to the township officers. I mean, when the township supervisor is getting 60% more cash money given to them in their check each week than what it's showing in the budget, then there's something wrong with this system. And when they were confronted with it, the township supervisor says that they're entitled to it. I mean, it's a case of entitlement. Where the township supervisor has been there for 24 years, they feel entitled. And one of the other people that's running against the township supervisor has been on the township board for 40 years. I mean, where's the change? I mean, how are things going to change? There was some this year when the issue of the money came up, there was some squawking by the trustees finally after the issue had been raised. But they voted, one of the trustees voted Mr. Dunkel to give him the money. It's just amazing. And now they're arguing, I understand, over how much, because the motion actually said, we're going to do the same thing that we did last year, meaning they're going to make a cash payment instead of giving them insurance. The clerk is interpreting that to mean that doing the same thing last year is, even though the health insurance is only $17,000 this year, it would cost it if they bought the policy, they're going to pay them the full $23,000. So there's a squabble going on by all these money grubbers that sit on the board. So you can't find this information anywhere. You have to actually do a FOIA request.
Yeah, you dug it up as a resident. So have you been able to hear from other candidates? I mean, are you seeing that there is potential for change with this upcoming election?
Yes, there is potential for change. Unfortunately, there's going to be one trustee that's going to be reelected. But there's a chance to replace everybody else. And the attorneys are, as far as I have heard, that there was some squawking about, well, now we don't want to change because we're in the middle of this lawsuit. Well, the township supervisor is not handling the lawsuit. The township supervisor is not an attorney. The attorneys are handling that. The attorney can bring you up to speed in about a half an hour on where you're at. So I don't see that as a problem. Plus, the office staff are not going to be changing. The office staff is familiar with how the treasurer works, how the books are kept, what the clerk does. I mean, there's continuity there in the staff, which people need to take into consideration. So I'm hopeful that things are going to change. I have been there. You know, there's no way to question the officers. You get 3 minutes to talk before the meeting, and not all the stuff is on the agenda.
Right.
And so you say your piece, and then you just have to sit there and listen to what they do after that. And I told them that I was disappointed in that township board, and that the way they were conducting their business was, in my opinion, borderline deceitful. And I'm not sure I've been back to another meeting since, and I don't like looking at them anymore because they run that like their own little fiefdom. So.
And I know there's a lot that we can go into, so I really appreciate you sharing your issues and concerns with us, and I'm glad to hear that you're ready to vote.
I'm ready to vote.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for being here with us, and thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to head out and vote on August 2nd and join us back here next week for another edition of Insights.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.
The furniture and set design for this episode of Insights is provided by Young Appliance Art Van Furniture on US 23 South, Alpena.